Hello, and welcome to Paranormal. More normal than we think. I am your host, Sir Naxalot, and we are joined today by David. David has had 5 experiences, and so far they sound very fascinating. And I figured I'd get him to come onto the show and start out so we can give a voice to the voiceless, give a voice to any and everyone who pretty much has had an experience and just can't get out into the airwaves. I'll let you have at it, David. You can go ahead and start with your first experience that you would like to talk about.
All right, it was January 16th, 2021, I believe. I was just coming back from a hike with 3 friends. We were driving down a road, and this was in a place called Doylestown, Pennsylvania. We were driving on this road called 611. I think we were driving south, and I was sitting in the front passenger. My friend Kate was driving, and my friend Derek was sitting behind her in the back. So we were kind of just driving along, and I see these 2 lights kind of coming towards each other. And they're the same color, and they were moving the same speed. They were also level with each other. And these lights were kind of like a creamsicle orange kind of color. And so I've had UFO experiences before this, so I kind of just started watching automatically because, I keep a lookout for that. And the lights eventually started getting like closer and closer and closer, and I'm watching them, and between them, in the center, a dim red light appears, and these objects continue to move towards each other. And as they're doing this, they start to orbit in unison the red light that had formed between the two of them. So
Wow.
if you've ever reloaded the page on Reddit, you can kind of see like that animation that it does at the top of the screen. It's pretty much exactly like that, but with 3 objects, 1 in the middle, 2 on the outsides. And so, like 2 objects mirroring each other going into a black hole. That's kind of what it looked like, but again, it was lit up. And so this happened. I freaked out, and so I turn around to my friends and I tell them what I just saw because I've never seen anything like that. The way,
Of course.
yeah, I mean, like the perfect unison in which they moved. I mean, it was like this. I can't explain it. Like, just the way like that they moved with each other. I mean, but they merged together, and now it's all just one orange light. I turn to my friends and I start telling them what I saw. And as I'm explaining to my friend in the back what I had seen, he gets all like wide-eyed, and he's like, "Oh my god, they just split apart and then switched spots in the sky."
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so the objects had split apart again, moved away from each other, and then in perfect unison again switched spots, perfectly mimicking each other's movement, as if they were orbiting like that red light, but the red light was no longer visible.
That's wild.
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy. There was a lot of
Absolutely.
people. There was a lot of people driving around us, and I wouldn't be surprised if like other people saw it. Like it was going on for at least like 15, 20 seconds. Like, it was unbelievable. We kept trying to like look at it and see, but eventually like the tree line blocked it. And we lost like a visual of them. But the last I saw of them, it was just the 2 separate orange creamsicle lights kind of moving away.
And it just kind of faded into the tree line.
Yeah, and then the tree line came up. We were driving along and you couldn't see it anymore. But yeah,
What date would you say this was again? Do you know?
Yeah, so that was, I believe it was January 16th, 2021. I could be wrong about that, but I know it was January 2021.
Well, what's wild about that is, so last night, this is not a channel about me, but I actually had an experience last night too. It
Really?
happens. You wouldn't believe how often it happens to me. But corroborating witnesses it's crucial, pretty much, to this, in my opinion. So,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
how I live I don't live at my mother's house, so everybody get that joke. Go ahead and kill me with that joke because it's going to happen. But no, I don't live at my mother's house. I live on the same land as my mother. And
I gotcha.
I was outside. Something told me, hey, go outside. Don't bring your phone. Don't bring your camera. Just go outside. Not like a voice, but it's just like a feeling. And so I
Hmm.
did. And I see my mother's light come on outside. So I know she's outside, but she can't see me, but I know she's there. And next thing I know, I see it was almost like an asteroid, a burning asteroid, but it was going way, way too slow. And this thing just streaked across the sky. And the next day, my mom brings it up to me and tells me she sees it. Now, there's a million and one things that could be.
Mm.
But in my opinion, with as much weird stuff that happens to me, surely to God, that has got to be something else. And
Yeah.
corroborating witnesses is what makes it the most real. It reassures you. And so your friends got to see this, and for them to see it, for you to see it, and this date that I'm putting out here, or that you actually said, maybe other people have seen it. And the more
Yeah.
people
I,
that sees it, the bigger it gets.
I think that you are exactly right. Like you hit it on the head with that. Like, if you're if you see something, right, like in the sky, you're just on a walk in the woods, right, and you see a flying saucer fly right over you, and it sucks you in, and then it lets you go, and then it flies away, right? No one's gonna believe you. I mean, you're the only person who saw it, and I'm so happy. I'm so lucky that with every single one of my experiences, there has been at least one person with me who saw it too. Like, because I mean, otherwise, if you don't have that, I mean, no one takes you seriously. And
No,
I
not at
mean,
all.
people still, I feel like, struggle to take some of like things that I talk about seriously, and I don't blame them at all. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's kind of preposterous. What am I talking about? Aliens on Earth? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we don't know what they are, what these things are, but like, whatever they are, I mean, it just it's crazy when you talk about like vehicles that shouldn't exist. You know, because people
Non-aerodynamic vehicles, like a tic tac,
exactly,
like that's insanity. Anyone, you would lock someone up for saying something like that, and to believe it
exactly.
so adamantly. So yes, I feel exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, for a long time, like I don't know, like I've always kind of been interested in UFOs, but I never bothered to really talk about it, even though that I had an experience all the way back when I was like in the second grade. I still just never really bothered to talk about it because, like, you don't want to get
Labeled
the
crazy.
stigma. Yeah, the stigma is still just so strong in our culture. But I mean, since the UAP report came out, I think that's definitely changing now. So now I'm definitely a lot more vocal about it with my friends and my family and stuff.
See, that's where you've got it kind of lucky. Here in Alabama, I mean, it's Alabama, for God's sakes. We don't. It's hard. So I don't even want my family to see this video, and I'll be honest. And I know they're gonna see it. So this is kind of me talking directly to them. Um, so yeah, it feels kind of weird, but I don't want them to see it because they're gonna be like, "Oh, UFOs? You really believe that? You're crazy. I'm not gonna talk to you anymore, or whatever."
Well, listen, the fact is, whatever this is, this phenomenon. I mean, you've said it to me that you've seen it. So if I take your word for it, I mean, like, you've seen it. You know what I mean? You know it's real. And what has helped me is that I have seen it too. You know what I mean? Like, if people can say whatever they want, like, they can say that it doesn't happen. They can say that it's all some sort of misinformation plot, to boost the military industrial complex. You can say whatever you want. But the fact remains that these vehicles are real. These vehicles are impeding into our airspace on a daily basis. These vehicles are so much more advanced than anything that the U.S. military or any other superpower on this planet has. And the ridicule that it receives is completely unscientific. It's completely baseless, and honestly, people need to just change the way that they take in information. That's my 2 cents.
Hey, absolutely. You said it perfectly. I feel like I'm the one who's getting interviewed now because that was beautiful. It really was. I love the way you said that. You're 100% correct. The
Well,
stigma
yeah, I mean,
has got to go away. It has to, because the moment it goes away, the moment we can actually really take apart this phenomenon and figure out what's going on. It may not be, little green men, because in all honesty, I don't believe it's little green men. I don't think it is. Do I think it's aliens? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't think it is what we think aliens are, because our brains are hardwired, and they're meant to make sense of our surroundings. That's the whole purpose. So if you were to tell someone something fantastic in the sky, they're going to automatically assume, well, there's nuts and bolts and there's a person driving it. But that's the problem. Our brains, they kind of screw us on that situation. What it could be anything. It could be literally anything. We could be an organism or a cell. We could be so small, and we could be an actual cell, like an animal cell. And these things coming into our airspace could be viruses. They could be, phenomenon, like aerial phenomenon, that are literally just native to the sky that we just don't realize, because it happens so much. And until we really take it apart and have one of these things for the public to see, we will never know what they are. We just won't. So the government has to come out. For the government to come out and say, hey, this is what this is, we have to get all of humanity pretty much to believe. And I mean, here's I'm talking directly to my I guess you would say audience. I don't really have one right now, but to my audience, I'm talking directly to you. Turn the computer off, turn your phone off after this video, of course. But turn your stuff off. Go outside. Look up into the sky for 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes. Take a pair of binoculars. Take whatever you want to take. But just go and do that for 30 minutes. And then come back and tell me you didn't see something you can't explain. These things happen constantly. They are not rare. They happen often. We just don't look up at the sky. We don't take time out of our busy day to look up at the sky. So I implore you, please go outside and do that. Okay.
I agree with that. I mean, every single sighting I've had, obviously, like I've been outside or in the car traveling, and it's true. Like when you're doing things like that, even when you're on a walk, sometimes you're just on your phone, you're looking at the ground, maybe you're looking at where you're stepping. You know what I mean? It's really hard to kind of train yourself to really stare at the sky when you're outside. But yeah, I totally agree with that. The more you look at the sky, the more you increase your chance of seeing one of these things. And I think that every single person, well, depending on where you live, because there definitely are apparent hotspots of UAP activity, but I think that you can definitely increase your chances of seeing one of these things. Like I've seen 5, and most of them happened within the span of a year. When I started paying attention more. But yeah, no,
and then
agree.
You moved location, and then
True,
they started
I
to
did.
calm down, and that could be another part of the whole situation. You're not in the same spot, and who knows? Consciousness has a huge part to tie into this. I believe the whole consciousness theory is massive to me. It means everything to me, and possibly your consciousness, when you move location, maybe they can't find you. And I know that sounds preposterous because they're highly advanced, but that's just another part of our human brain talking. And maybe they can't. Maybe they just can't. Maybe they're trying to find you. Maybe that's why it's not a hotspot yet. Maybe you're not meant to see it. But that doesn't change the point that they are out there. They are out there every night, whether you're there or not. They will be seen by Johnny down the street. They will be seen by whoever.
I'll say this. I mean, my friends have joked to me, like some of the people who've been there when I've seen these things, because now I talk to my friends about it all the time with all the news that's coming out and stuff. I keep them informed, but they used to say maybe you're getting followed around, and I don't have any abduction experiences or anything of that sort. Like I've never, and if I have, I don't remember. You know what I mean? Like, but I, for some reason, none of my friends have seen UFOs by themselves. All of my friends who have seen UFOs, they've been with me. Even if I didn't see the UFO, like I'll give you one example right now. So I was at my old elementary school. This was about, I think this was 3 years ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see this with my eyes, but my friend who was standing directly in front of me did. So we were all standing. It was a bunch of my friends and I. We were just kind of standing in a circle next to our car, and my buddy Sandro, he was the only one looking in the direction that was behind me, and he suddenly just burst out and said like, "Oh my God, like what was that?" Like I don't know what he said, but he like freaked out, and he explained to me that he saw in the sky a ring of lights, so like like in a saucer shape, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
lit up, very very bright, and then the whole entire vehicle, whatever it was, maybe it wasn't a vehicle, who knows what it was, lit up. So the object was illuminating the entire thing, and then it shot off instantly. But before it shot off, he said that it almost looked like it shined something on us. You know what I mean?
Like it was kind of trying to figure out exactly what was down below it.
Yeah, he said he like it looked like it shined a light directly at us, like two flashes of light, just kind of like a quick like
Boom, boom, and you didn't see anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not see this at all.
That's
Nobody
wild.
else saw this. Only he saw this, and he freaked out, and he told everybody, and on the UFO net. So I was prodding him for questions and stuff, and he actually brought this up to me. I visited Philadelphia about a week ago, and I was actually talking to him, and he brought it up. He was like, yo, have you heard about all this UFO stuff? Like, do you remember that time at our school? And I was like, yeah, of course I did. Yeah, right time at the right place. Always got to keep your eyes on the sky. Something I want to touch on. You said that we were talking about this topic becoming more, I guess, destigmatized. Right now, today, actually, Bill Nelson, Avi Loeb, I can't remember who else, but some very big names in the UFO community, and Bill Nelson being NASA's chief, are holding a live stream right now, talking about UAP,
wow.
and this may actually be, a pretty big moment considering Bill Nelson's previous comments about UAP. I'm not sure if you're aware what he recently said.
No, unfortunately, I have not seen anything with NASA. If you would like to enlighten the public, then by all means.
Of course, yeah. So Bill Nelson was giving a interview for, I think it was a news organization, and again, he's literally the guy in charge of NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out. He was asked during a Q&A. They asked him about UAP, and he said immediately. He said, I've talked to the pilots. Some of the stuff that they're saying is unbelievable. It's extraordinary. And then he was asked, what do you think UAP are? And instead of answering the question directly and saying what he thinks, he says what he knows.
Oh.
And what he knows is that there are billions of planets around hundreds of billions of stars. I mean, the scales of the universe are preposterous. The amount of planets around stars. He starts talking about that. And then he says, the chances of us, humans, being the only people, the only organisms that are sentient and, traveling the stars, I mean, it's zero. Like, it's preposterous to think.
Like the Fermi paradox.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where are they? The Fermi paradox says, like, where are all the aliens if the Drake equation is right?
Right.
And I think the answer is they're here already, and they
Yeah.
just don't
Yes.
want us to see them because we're, say, in a cocoon's phase right now. I think we are moving past our faults as a civilization, as a species, moving away from war, hopefully. And if we pass that test, I think that maybe uh, perhaps we'll be allowed to see behind the curtain, so to say.
I think so. We will. I really do. See, we as a species, we're violent. We are horrible. I mean, there are gleams and shimmers of hope that humanity has, and I see that, and I love that, and I want there to be more of it. But if you compare the amount of peace, love, tranquility, all that good stuff, with the violence and the terrible things that humans have done, there's just no way to compare it. Humans are just vicious. And until we overcome that, I just don't feel like they're going to show. Because why would you ever go to a planet where you know for a fact they love to kill each other? Would you fly there? No, I wouldn't. Because they're definitely going to kill you. They're going to kill you so hard. They're going to kill you as hard as they can. But
You know, the way I like to look at this, you know, we go to the jungle and we videotape apes, you know, and the apes are using like rocks and stuff to break open nuts. And the apes think they're so smart, you know what I mean? The apes have no idea what's going on. But those researchers with the cameras, they understand. They know what's going on. I think we are the apes, and they are the sort of researchers. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. This topic. This conversation is why I love this topic. You know, it goes this one topic alone, the topic of UFOs, whatever they may be. It practically covers every aspect of human existence. Once you start digging into it, once you start looking at the way it affects us, the way we should be thinking about it, the way we should be handling it, the messages that these UAP are sending us through ICBM missile incursion, and as Robert Salas has said, how some of our nuclear missiles have just been completely disabled briefly by massive vehicles. I mean, it's a message, right? Like,
Absolutely,
it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious, and you know, I think we as a species, we can better ourselves from analyzing the behavior of these vehicles. I mean, they're constantly seen around nuclear installations. I mean, what does that say? I mean, so it's either, well, it seems like they're trying to warn us about nuclear technologies.
Nuclear weapons, in my opinion. Nuclear weapons. I feel
Well,
like
yes.
nuclear technology, as in like power plants and stuff, beautiful thing, good thing, great thing. Could be better.
I agree. But sometimes, like in the case of the Nimitz, they're swarming around nuclear reactors, which are contained within the ship as its source of power.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily a nuclear weapon; it's just a nuclear material. So perhaps whatever it is, it doesn't discern between threatening radiation and non-threatening radiation. Perhaps it just seeks out all radiation.
Radiation. Correct. Yeah. It's kind of like what Lou Elizondo was talking about whenever he said the threat and an intent. They're two different things.
Exactly.
Our intent is to power our subs, our ships and stuff to make sure that, nobody is invading us, and us by being the US and stuff like that. But to a species that has never been here before or doesn't fully understand us, they would look at that and say, "Hey, that right there has the power, the ability to really mess up part of the earth." And so they want to monitor it, make sure us, dumb apes are doing the correct thing to make sure we're using it right, and there is no chance for it to, mess up. Because I mean, they don't know. They don't know if we're smart enough to use this technology correctly. And maybe that's what they're doing. They're just overseeing and making sure we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. So yeah, this kind of goes like into kind of like the zookeeper hypothesis. the zoo hypothesis, that we're just kind of like an exhibit and we're being taken care of right now in our adolescence. God, what was my point about this?
It happens to me all the time. No worries. No worries.
Oh, God.
Tell you what helps me the best on situations like this is move on, and eventually it'll come right back to you. I promise. It does. It
That's
happens
true.
to me so much. And even
Um,
if we don't like this part, I can always chop it out.
oh, I remember now. I got it.
There
Yep.
you go.
So yeah, so the zoo hypothesis, right? So with nuclear technology, in specifically, I feel like we might not be the only people using this planet. The only entities using this planet. Earth may be a true like ecological heaven. You know what I mean? Like perhaps life is rarer than we thought. Perhaps life is rare. And I mean, you look at Earth, not even just discount humans for a second. I mean, look how many species of frog there are. Salamander, you have lions and what is an axolotl? You know what I mean? Like there's so
Absolutely.
much beauty on this planet, and not only that, but it is so resource rich. There's so much water. And other precious metals and so on. So if this is a species that also wants to utilize this planet, it would make sense why they are so interested in our nuclear technology. I mean, if we're blowing ourselves up with nukes, I mean, how long is it going to take for the Earth to recover? It's going to be 50,000 years, 100,000 years easily for it to all go back to normal, for radiation levels to decrease and things like that. You destroy the planet effectively. And so they would have a loss as well. Not only the loss of us, I mean, they may not care about us for all we know. They may just care about this planet and its resources. Another thing is, I mean, we could be a resource as human beings. We could be a resource. You were talking about consciousness. Perhaps consciousness is a physical thing. Perhaps if you're like a higher being in like a fourth dimension or something like that, which has been proposed to explain the way that these vehicles behave. Perhaps the soul or consciousness is something physical that you could manipulate and use for your own personal gain. And that's what we are. We could be cattle.
Man,
But, I mean, who knows?
this is why. So this is just my first interview, but I gotta say, I can already tell if this can take off, I will absolutely love this as a job, because what you just said, I've never thought of. And I mean, I would never label myself with any kind of title, but I feel like if there were to be a title for me, it would be like Diogenes. I'm a philosopher, because I think of all these things, all these thoughts, and trying to get down to the very bottom of it. And yet, the beauty of it is you just gave me something that I have never thought about. I think about consciousness all the time, but I've never thought of it being a resource. That is beautiful. I love that. I love
It's
that.
beautiful and it's possibly horrifying.
Terrifying. It's terrifying, but I love it.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I really, I basically obsess over this. Ever since I've seen my first like UFO, I've just kind of silently obsessed over this.
yes,
Because I saw
absolutely.
something that shouldn't exist, and the scientific community tells me it shouldn't exist, and the government tells me it shouldn't exist. But I saw it, and my friend saw it, and
It
it
exists.
vanished into thin air. And what was it?
Mm-hmm.
This is so incredible, and it's happening right now, and people need to understand that this is happening now, and it's been happening since at least the 1940s. And our
Absolutely.
government's just lied to us about it blatantly. Who are you going to punish? You know what I mean? Like,
That's a good point.
This has been so compartmentalized within the defense industry that we're not even sure that it's within the hands of the military anymore. I mean, companies like Raytheon, Boeing, these companies that make so many billions, if not trillions of dollars. I think Lockheed Martin is going to make $1 trillion off of the F-35, something like $1.9 trillion. Like F-35, the fighter jet. Who knows where this data is now being stored, where it's been moved to hide it from people. It's like I almost feel that, like, I kind of want, I almost feel like it would be right to, have somebody as the scapegoat. You know what I mean? Like, because, somebody certainly started this downward tumble of, like, disinformation and illogical nonsense which goes on within this community. Somebody started that, and I think it was probably whoever started Project Blue Book, whoever ordered that into creation. But those people are probably long dead, and I think their legacy was the stigma that they created, which just stopped further people from really looking into it. I mean, I'm certain, though, that the government has continued to look into this consistently since they found out about this. But again, yeah, I don't know. Like, nobody's ever gonna know who's really responsible for this lack of information, which we know exists.
I agree. I agree, and you're probably correct. I mean, more than likely, you are right. I mean, we have been covering it up, and the people that did cover it up, I'm sure they're gone. They have passed away. But the people under him or them have been carrying the torch just out of habit, just out of they were told to do something, and so they did. And that's just kind of how it works in the military. You're told to do something and you do it. You don't ask why, you don't ask how, you just do it. And that's what's been happening from day one till now. And I feel like they are finally seeing, hey, we can talk about this. I get it. And so it is coming out. It's a very crucial time. We are in something that a lot of people aren't understanding, and it's kind of sad. We are in a historical moment in our lives. And this is very important. And a lot of people don't realize it. My next door neighbor, they don't realize it. My neighbor down the road, they don't realize it. But it's here. We are going through a part that's going to be written down or typed down into our history books. And they're missing it. They're missing disclosure. They're missing, where what you're saying now, the live stream, the head of NASA. They're missing that because they don't care, because they don't think it's real. I mean, I told a guy the other day, I was talking to him about this interview because I've been stoked about this interview, man. It means everything to me, and for real,
I'm happy to help.
It really does. It means so much because you were the first one, and so far the only one who's come to me and said, "Hey, I want to be interviewed." But I was telling somebody about it, and he looked at me like I was insane. It was someone I hadn't talked to about this subject, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, how am I crazy when this video right here was shot from a fighter jet and so many pilots? All this information it's out here. It's been proven. It's been shown. It's not a hoax. How am I crazy when here's the proof? And I show him the proof. He's like, oh, that's just the government making it up. I'm like, oh my Lord, are you kidding me? What is it going to take for you to understand? And people like that, I feel, they're going to deny it and deny it until it becomes a well-known fact. And at that point, they're just going to say, oh yeah, I've always known they were real. And that's just part of the human paradigm in some people.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
I think the reason is, like, it's I feel like it's kind of simple, It's like this, ignorance is bliss. If, like we've already talked about, like we've only been talking for about 40 minutes, and we've already covered the fact that souls could be a commodity, something the consciousness could be something that's useful in a higher dimension, right? That's scary to think about, If you are unaware, if you don't think about it, you are much more comfortable going about your day-to-day life. I mean, if you're aware that you are the inferior creature, right? If people become aware that we are at the bottom of the food chain, basically, on this planet now, I mean, they're going to be scared. And so that's why, ignorance, not wanting to learn because it scares you, it lets people stay in their comfort zone. But this is one of those times where humanity as a whole must come out of its comfort zone. We must do so quickly so that we may either, at least get this information out. We must utilize the technology, stop trying to stay within their comfort zones.
I
and
agree.
just let the process of science take over.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. I agree completely. Before we go into your next experience, because we've gotten so wrapped up in the conversation of it all that we haven't even gotten to your second experience, and that's totally fine by me, man. I mean, the more natural it feels, the better it feels. So that's great. Um, but before we get on to that, what I wanted to oh crap, I've done forgot. See, now it's happening to me. Now I can't think of what I was gonna go for.
Don't
Oh
worry
crap.
about it.
The dead zone you were talking about. We are not really the dead zone. So you said that Earth has a lot of, a lot of materials, a lot of these precious metals and these rare commodities. Well, I don't. Have you ever played a game called Subnautica?
Yeah, I'm aware of the game and how it works and stuff like that. Yeah, I used to watch people play that on YouTube.
Exactly. So if you think of it like that, so for everybody who doesn't know, Subnautica is this water-based game. You're underwater 90% of the time, and the whole like area that you explore, it's rich in life and rich in these materials and stuff. But on the outsides of the map is an ecological dead zone, which means there's nothing out there. It's so empty, it's so dead. But in that one spot, there's just everything. And if you take a look at our solar system, our area that we reside in, you can actually Google it or whatever you want to do. We live on the very edge of a massive, I'm talking so many trillions of light years wide, just void. And I can't recall what they call it.
Oh
But
yes, yes. We're in the middle of a super void, the
yes,
largest super void ever observed. We're right in the middle of it. Yeah, I've heard of this. Yep.
yes, and this has been proven. This isn't a crazy theory. This has been proven. And if you
Hmm.
look at it like that, it is so incredibly difficult. I mean, surely this could be my human brain saying this, but surely it's very difficult for any spacefaring race to come here. It may not be like Star Wars. They flick a button and then they're in hyperspace. Maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's a lot harder for them to get here than we realize. Maybe they come here and maybe they did make a base underground. Maybe they live beneath the mantle and the crust. Who knows? Because I mean, to me, if you're going to go out to explore and try to understand this certain species of this certain part of the rainforest, you're not going to go there one day. You're going to camp out on the outskirts of where you know they live. You're going to try to stay there so you can study them. So I don't think they're flying back and forth during a day. I think they're coming here, living here, exploring what they need to, and then when their mission is complete, they head back. So that would make so much sense for them to live in this in the ocean. I mean, surely to God, you can't find them in the ocean. Or maybe they have a hole that they go down into the earth, and maybe they live in the earth because we can't go that deep. There's no way we can go that deep. We've tried. It's a super deep hole in Russia to nothing. We barely even cracked the surface when we dug that hole.
Hmm.
So who's to say that maybe they are living on this dead zone, or they're living in the earth on the edge of that dead zone, and they're going to fly back and tell their superiors about it. Or maybe they're trying to find a new place to populate. Maybe they've populated earth under earth because we're so rich in all these materials. Because if you go to Mars, you're not going to find water. You're not going to find, well, I don't want to speak on something I don't know much about, but surely to God there's not gold on Mars. I mean, there could be. Who knows? Who knows? There's just so much to this subject that it's really hard to talk about just one thing. Because like you were saying earlier, the whole subject itself, it ties into human existence, and
Hmm.
there's no way to doubt that. I mean, it's true. It's true. It does. It does. All right.
In fact,
Go,
I'll
go
say
ahead.
this. It goes. It relates to human existence so much that, in fact, we could be the product of a much more advanced and much older civilization that came here and genetically modified us, our ancestors. I'm not saying I subscribe to this, but I mean, this is a theory that was proposed. We have no idea how the human brain evolved so rapidly to where we are today. I mean,
there's a reason they call it.
Technological progression in the last 200 years alone is ridiculous. I mean, we went from the airplane to where we are now, considering whether or not the U.S. government has UFO technology. So our true gods may in fact be what we are seeing now, or at least a similar type of kind of situation that was around back with our ancestors. Yeah, this is some pretty crazy stuff.
It really is, and I agree. And that's actually given me a lot of stigma because, I mean, I live in Alabama, so everyone calls it the Bible Belt. And for someone like me to live where I live and come out and actually make this YouTube video, I don't know, in like California, this might not be taboo. Here in Alabama, it's taboo. Once this video goes up, there's a good chance I'm going to get ridiculed. There's people going to send me mean messages. There's a very high chance of that. I mean,
I'll say this. The Pope has said that if aliens are real, the Catholic Church has said that if aliens are real and they come here, it in no way undermines the God's power, as you could say, God's authority or whatever, God's existence.
Yeah. And I wouldn't know enough about that to even say if it would or wouldn't. Honestly, I mean, he could be right, and then again, he could be wrong. But you were saying that what we know of as gods could be them, and I want everybody to take a step back and really think about that sentence. If we were to go back in time right now with the laptop that we're talking on right now and show it to one guy, he would probably look at us like if we went back to the 1700s. And I showed somebody this laptop, they'd call me a god. They would. And that's because we as humans, we look at technology as though it's magic. We look at science as though it's magic. And in all reality, it's just technology. It's just a laptop, I don't know. It's just a huge sense. I'm glad it does. Sense. I'm glad you understand.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm not going to say, again, this is completely just me talking as a hypothetical, right? Like if you put Jesus, right? If you make him an extraterrestrial with unbelievable technological power, and then you put those stories back, and you start looking at the story of Jesus Christ as an extraterrestrial, it kind of makes a lot of sense, right?
It makes a lot of sense.
It came back to life, apparently, somehow had regenerative powers or something like that. I'm not very well versed on the Bible, to be honest.
It's all good. But he could walk on water,
exactly.
Turn water into wine, and turning water into wine.
The Son of God, like, it's...
so turning water into wine, I mean, that right there is a process that we know well today. If you take, to make wine, period. And if we know that process now, if we knew it back then, surely to God in the future, we'll know how to turn water to wine. Easy peasy. It's just going to take time. So, absolutely, Jesus could be an alien. He could have been. Oh man, that sounds. We sound so crazy. We sound crazy. we were programmed to sound like this.
At least we're aware of how crazy it sounds.
Good point. Yeah. I like that. That's when you've lost it. Is when you're spouting craziness. Exactly. And you don't realize it's crazy. That's the limit. All right. So we'll just move on to your next experience. And by the way, my followers, my subscribers, if I get any, whatever, y'all, here's what I want y'all to do. We're gonna split this up into another interview, hopefully, if everything works out pretty well. And he's gonna give us 2 more experiences. If we have time to go over, a third experience in this little video. So hopefully he can do that.
All right. So this is my first ever experience. This was in the 2nd grade. It was 4th of July. I can't remember what year it was, but I know I was in the second grade. Um, and I was outside in this cul-de-sac at a family friend's house, and we were just kind of watching the fireworks. Me and this girl who was about a year younger than me at the time. And I just like to start this like by saying I at the time I would build model airplanes, and I loved aviation, things like that. I'd read about uh, military jets. I had like a whole book and stuff like that. So I was aware what a blimp, what an airplane, a jet, anything that flew, I knew what it was for the most part. Even at that age. And so we were outside watching the fireworks, and we see some going off in front of us, whatever, and then we hear them go off behind us. So me and this girl, we turn around, and instead of fireworks, kind of like to the side of her house, from our perspective, it was in the sky. I think it might have been a bit far away, but the memory is kind of a little bit blurry, So I don't know exactly how far this thing was away from me, but it did take up like a somewhat decent portion of the sky. And it was a circular object. No, sorry, it was a ovoid object, oval, and it was gray. I think kind of like a gray color, maybe like it was like really dark. It could have been like a blue, maybe like a navy blue. I have no idea. It was gray or one of those, but
Hey, this was a long time ago, so
yeah,
being so young, no one's gonna hold it against you for getting any of these details wrong, honestly. But I mean, you were young. I've had experience.
yeah.
My very first experience when I was young, same situation. It's so hard to recall.
I'm thankful the girl was there with me. I mean, she saw it too. Her name was Nicole, and yeah, I mean, she saw this too. But anyways, it was yeah. So the oval object was moving across the sky, and we're kind of just watching it. It's making no noise. It's moving pretty slowly. I asked her. I can remember vividly asking her. I was like, "Hey, do you have your iPod? Can you take a picture of this thing? Because I knew right away, like, this was weird, take a picture of it." Of course, she didn't have her iPod. And so we just watched in bewilderment as this thing silently moved. Again, it was a completely uniform color, uniform shape. Eventually, it moved behind, from our perspective, behind her neighbor's house, which was kind of up on a hill. And the house had a chimney, and it moved behind the chimney. And we waited for it to come out on the other side, right? And it never did. It never did. And so we moved around the house to try and reposition ourselves, to try and get a better, see if it was still there. Maybe it was some sort of blimp, and it turned and it was just going in a different direction that lined up with the chimney, so we wouldn't see it. But no, it was just completely gone, completely vanished. And like I said, I mean, this was a large object, seemingly. So where it could have gone without any noise that quickly, I mean, this was in a span of probably 30 seconds. I to this day, I can't explain it. We ran over to our parents who were in the backyard, and we told them about this. But yeah, they didn't they didn't believe us.
No, of course not. They probably, you said y'all are just some kids thinking of some
Yeah,
crazy
and
stuff.
she remembers this to this day. Like, unfortunately, our families don't really talk anymore. But I found her social media through a mutual friend of mine,
Mhm.
and of ours, and I DM'd her and I asked her. I was like, "Hey, like, do you remember this?" And like, she said, "Yeah, like." She did.
So you weren't imagining it.
Yeah, so it's not some false memory that I had. Like, it's not something I'd like dreamed up and confused for a real memory. Like, this happened, and I have no explanation for it at all.
Of course not. Of course not. I mean, it'd be difficult to explain it, even if you had a way to explain it. I feel like it's something that us humans just, I don't think we're going to be able to understand it fully until it sounds like a cop out, but I don't think we can understand it until we can understand it. I know
I
how
know, no,
crazy that
I know what you
sounds.
mean. We right now we are pushing the limits of the human mind. In my opinion, I think that technology is at this point becoming smarter than ourselves, and it's going to take probably maybe a few thousand years for our minds. I mean, easily it could even be millions of years, based on the time scales of our universe, and when
You
these
know
things
what?
could have been coming here and things like that.
That what you just said is actually a really good point. So maybe it could take this many years, a millions of years, or 1,000 years, or whatever, for us to fully understand it. But maybe, just maybe, when they way back in the caveman days, because there's drawings on the inside of caves that you know show these creatures, these things, these aliens. Maybe that's when we should be saying it's going to take thousands of years for us to understand it. Maybe back in caveman days. Maybe we're on the edge of understanding it now.
It could be, and with things like Roswell, people can debate Roswell all they want, but the government did blatantly lie at Roswell. Whether or not it was Project Mogul, that's still up for debate. But the fact is, I mean, hundreds of witnesses have since come out. I believe that the number is hundreds. Within over 100 people have come out since then and said the whole thing was a cover up, and that I mean, the government themselves, the first thing that they admitted was, we have a flying saucer in our
Yeah,
possession. And
it
then a
was
day
ran in the
later,
news.
yeah, it became worldwide news immediately. And then a
Mm-hmm.
day later, I mean, whoever read that newspaper within the military higher up probably realized, okay, if this is true, then now we have to start trying to reverse engineer this, because whoever has this technology wins. Um,
Absolutely.
so obviously, there you go. There's your reason to cover it up. And so they came down to Roswell, and they told them, they gave them a different thing. Oh, it was a crashed weather balloon. But you can't. How are you going to argue with? I mean, these people who saw it hand on, who gave testimony before they died, who were silenced, and if their accounts are accurate, which they likely are, the U.S. government has this technology. And I think that possibly the reason why disclosure is happening right now, the reason people like Lou Elizondo are kind of almost being allowed to do what they are doing, the reason that Tom DeLonge is doing what he's doing with To the Stars Academy,
Mm-hmm.
could be because we've done it. We've successfully reverse engineered this technology. Perhaps we did it a few years ago and we've been sitting on it. And perhaps this technology just, there's too much money to be made off of it. There's too much money to be made off of it. There's too much good that's going to come from it. And so now is the time to release it. But
Absolutely.
at the same time, though, if we do have that technology, which mimics, perhaps not exactly, but to a degree, the capability of UAPs, we may be able to join, say, the intergalactic community if it exists, because we will now be on a level playing field with them somewhat technologically.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that, to go back to what I was saying earlier about how I don't think that they're going to come out here until we control our violent urges. I feel like you were saying something earlier about catapulting the our technology overnight seamlessly. I've been telling my wife that. I've been telling my wife that constantly. I've been saying it's happening soon. I can feel it. I can just feel it. There's something in the air. I can feel that once this happens, we are going to jump almost overnight. And the people who don't realize it are those who are going to be left behind. It's like you said. There's just too much. There's just too much money. There's too many good things that could happen, and so you kind of have to backpedal it and kind of give it to the mass, like the public, in small little spoonfuls. Kind of like what Lou Elizondo was saying too. He said, if you take a spoon and you get baby food and you feed a baby, that's wonderful. The baby's been nourished. He's got all the nourishment that it needs for that time. But if you were to take that same spoon and fill it full of food that the baby will need for the rest of its life, and you give it to that baby's going to die. That baby's going to die as soon as that body starts to try to digest all of that nutrients, because you gave all of it at once, and you just can't do that. It's an overload. And all these people who think that UFOs, UAPs aren't real, if we were to come out and fully just give them proof, if we were to fly in front of them with a UFO and get out and say, we told you it was real, then they get back in the UFO and fly off, those people could have a stroke, because they're so as funny as it sounds, they're so adamantly against UFOs and UAPs that they're like, there's no way. And then it breaks their reality, their paradigms, and they just, they seize up and have a stroke on the floor.
Yeah.
There's no telling, man. There's no telling. It's crazy.
Another, one thing I'll say, like, it's kind of scary to think about. It's honestly, it's horrifying to think about. But if you're rational about it and you observe what's happening to the human race, technologically speaking, it's pretty shocking. Like, so we were just talking about in 200 years since the Industrial Revolution to where we are now. I mean, that rate of progression, it's not double every year. It's exponential. It's more than double every year. And we are now creating technologies which could destroy us. We are creating our own existential risks, which were before our only issues were super volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, asteroids, anything nature throws at us. Now we are creating nature in a way. I mean, nuclear technology,
CRISPR,
nuclear bombs. Yeah, CRISPR, genetic modification, genetically modified viruses. Coronavirus, it seems pretty obvious that it leaked from a laboratory. I mean, you can't really argue with that anymore.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question.
Yeah. And so you have to wonder, like, okay, what if it was even a little bit worse? What if instead of, I mean, what's the percent of people who die from coronavirus? Is it like 1% or something? Yeah,
But you can keep talking.
It's something low, but imagine if it was like 20%. How many millions, hundreds of millions of people would be dead right now? And that is the power that we have now. We can destroy ourselves fully by our own hand. And we have never had this capability before in human history. Up until 1940, 43? Is that when they successfully tested a nuke? I'm not sure, but
that was, it was either 43 or 44, because we dropped the nuke December on Hiroshima.
Yeah, so like the Trinity tests, they were, I mean, that from then on, humanity has been able to kill itself. And I think that this technology takes us away from that brink of extinction, that constant brink of extinction. This technology, it would allow us to escape this planet. It would allow us to become a multi-planetary civilization, the human race. Yeah, it's a much smaller chance that we go extinct. Much smaller chance that an asteroid hits Earth. You could just deflect it with gravitational propulsion. I think that this technology possibly has been cracked, that they are now trying to implement it because they understand this is the way. I mean, everybody, we look at what's happening on Earth right now. It's clear. I mean, we're moving, every country, for the most part, is moving in a negative way. The United States is completely divided right now. I mean, look what's happening in Australia. Look at China. China is behaving like Germany did before World War II. And so something has to change. Something must change. And I think that whoever is in charge of this technology, on the human side, is in the understanding that they must release it for the betterment of humanity as a whole. I think soon, very soon, we're going to start seeing in films, in just in media in general, things that we're consuming for entertainment. It's going to be a lot of UFO imagery, a lot of discussion of extraterrestrials, things of that nature. I think it's the government is going to be preparing us for some sort of technological implementation or release.
I agree. I agree with that statement fully. Like absolutely. Man, I for being my first guest, I have to say you are phenomenal. I mean, honestly, for real, you're it feels so natural just talking with you. It's perfect. I love it. So,
I
I
appreciate it.
cannot
Thank you.
I can't wait to have you back, man. I really can't. All right, let's move forward to the third and final experience that we're we're going to go over for this video. When he will come back sometime after the 17th of November, because the 17th of November is when I am buying a mic. Because I'm sure y'all can hear the microphone that I'm using is not the best. It it kind of sounds like ass, if I'm being honest. So, but yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to your third experience, if you don't mind.
Sure. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but these, I'm not telling these in any sort of chronological order or anything, but this next experience, the first experience I told Derek, my friend who was in the back, in this next experience, he was also with me. We were riding our bikes together on a path, and I think this was in September of 2020. We were riding our bikes on this kind of like golf course, and we were just kind of riding along, weren't really saying anything. It was just like a beautiful night outside. There was like low cloud cover over most of the sky with like patches of stars in between.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the moon was out, and it was like, so it was pretty lit up, so we could see the sky and stuff. And so we're just kind of riding along, not saying anything, and out of nowhere, without sound, this pretty large. I mean, it seemed pretty large for. I mean, it coming out of the clouds. How far away are the clouds? You know what I mean? Like this cylindrical object. I think it. I can't remember what lights it had on it. I think it was like. I think there was a yellow, maybe a red, and a green light on it. That were flashing very, very fast. And it came straight down through the clouds at like not an angle like an airplane, you know. And it was extremely fast. This was over within a span of probably 1 second or so. It was not a meteorite, as you know. I if it had come through the clouds that way, there certainly would have been some sort of impact, or at least explosion within the atmosphere that we would have heard. But no, I mean, we could see this object pretty clearly. It was lit up by the lights on it. It was a cylindrical shape. It seemed pretty large. It made no noise. When it was over, we both turned to each other at the same time. We're like, "Oh my god! Did you see that? Did you see that?" Like, so yeah, that was pretty crazy.
That sounds wild.
Vast experience, but I mean, I know for a fact that it was some sort of cylindrical shape. I know Derek said he thought it might have been kind of like a carrot falling with the butt end first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, some sort of cylindrical shape, or conical maybe.
Yeah. What I want everyone to understand about this whole series I'm doing multiple series. I'm doing this photography, guns, games, whole bunch of stuff. But if you come here for this content, something I want everyone to understand: if these UAPs are flying at 80,000 miles an hour, there's a very good chance that most of these experiences are going to be short. They're going to be. Like last night, I saw that flaming asteroid looking thing for seriously, it couldn't have been but for a second. And so that what y'all have to understand is it's just they're short. They're short experiences. And pretty much it. That's all you can really say about it is they're short.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen in a blink of an eye. And a lot of people say, like, okay, you saw this. Why didn't you take a picture? Well,
you
first
can't.
of all, yeah, exactly. In some instances, it's over just like this before you can even think to get your camera out, your phone out. In other instances, it's just so incredible that you don't really want to look away or something. It almost feels like you can't take your phone out. I've heard some people say that they get a physical sensation that almost stops them from trying to record what they're seeing, which could be some sort of psychological effect produced by these vehicles. We don't know yet, but
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a cop out either at all in the slightest amount. Because if these things have the ability to travel through space, realize that now, people, I'm saying space, not from here to here on the world, through space, then what is stopping them from having the power to look at this human and say, you're not going to get your phone out? And then he can't get his phone out. There's nothing. That's the part where it crosses over. You cannot analyze this with a human mind. You have to think outside of being a human. That's difficult because you're a human. It sounds impossible.
exactly, yeah.
The best way to think outside of your mind is to stop over analyzing things. Look at it as what it is, what you've seen, and what it could be. But don't overanalyze.
Exactly, yeah. And that's a great way to look at it. Like I've always been like extremely rationally minded. I've always been like science driven. I'm just so curious about everything, and
Absolutely.
I love to just research anything science related. I think that's like really important to understand science, because understanding science is understanding the universe and our place in it. But these vehicles, a way to put this into perspective is like these things are so advanced. The smallest distance that they could have come from, assuming that they're from a different star system, is 4 light years. So going the speed of light, it takes you 4 years to get to the closest possible candidate that they could have come from. This is I'm pretty sure it's Proxima Centauri, I believe. But so obviously they must be moving faster, because the amount of UAP we see, there has to be some direct line of travel that's constantly going on between various points in maybe in the galaxy, and things like that, to Earth. These things must be going faster than the speed of light for this to be feasible, unless they're unmanned and they're just AI. So that puts into perspective how advanced these things are. They're moving faster than the speed of light. They're likely bending gravity on them to go to point A to from point A to point B. To speculate on this, honestly, sometimes it kind of feels like a waste of time. You know what I mean? Like, probably can't even begin to grasp their intentions, their reasoning behind being here. The processes which take the way their technology operates. It's so much more advanced than we are. The chance that these guys started out at the same time that we did 100,000 years ago or so, 200,000 years ago, is so ridiculous. The universe is so old, and it is so vast, and right now, any technology that you could ever think of, it exists somewhere out there, and someone's using it, but right now we are stuck in this stage.
That's well said. I mean, I agree. And some people will say, you can't go faster than the speed of light. Albert Einstein said so. Well, think about this. Not too long ago, they thought that black holes did not exist. And what do we have a picture of today? A black hole. So clearly, people, I mean, we're human. People can be wrong. And I do believe they are wrong.
The thing about black holes and UAP is the way that light bends around a black hole is actually very similar to the effect seen of with UAP in a very famous case called the Aguadilla airport footage. I believe it's from 2015. It was a Department of Homeland Security released video. And it was very thoroughly analyzed by a group of scientists who call themselves the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. And they, through analysis of this FLIR video taken from an aircraft, a border security camera. Border security border patrol aircraft. Sorry.
You're all good.
And in this video, you can see what appears to be light bending around this object. I mean, that is basically the processes of a black hole. Whatever this object is, it has the ability to change gravity around it in a way that is so strong that it is bending light. That's crazy. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
It is. It's wild. It's wild. That for those of you, which if you've made it this far, surely you know a thing or two about UAPs, but I'll go ahead and explain it. So they are transmedium. They have this ability to go into the ocean at 80,000 miles an hour and then stop in that ocean without making a splash. So, and that's just not one. That's not just one case. This has been documented through multiple cases that this continues to happen. So clearly, they are using some kind of technology, like David was saying, that is the same technology or the same processes as a black hole.
It's really. I'm glad that you pointed out without a splash. I mean, these things seem to move water out of the way instead of splashing, right? Like you drop something into the water and it splashes. Instead, this thing just moves the water. It just bends the water out of the way. Another thing, though, is these things will be going Mach 10 or whatever. Some preposterous speed. And they do not produce a sonic boom. I mean, nothing we know of can do that.
As we talked about earlier, my channel is going to be about guns. That's part of it. And a lot of people wonder, silencers. People think that if you put a silencer on a gun, it shoots like it does in the movies. But that is incorrect. To fully use a silencer, you have to put the silencer on it. It's actually called a suppressor, by the way. But you have to put the suppressor on it. And then the rounds you fire, they have to be subsonic.
Yeah.
Correct. Because that bang you hear, that is not the sound of the gunpowder igniting and coming out of the gun. That's the sound of the bullet breaking the sound barrier. This object, the size of who knows how big these things are.
A football field in some instances.
Multiple. I've heard 4. Yeah. Like kind of like the lights of the Phoenix lights. Like those are huge, and they are flying without making a sound. And then when they take off, still no sound. When they go Mach 10 or whatever, or even faster, no sound. That, if you think about that coupled with the transmedium object flying into the ocean with no splash, these are two things that if you were lying about it, you're not going to think to add those two details. You're going to say, oh yeah, this thing was flying so fast, it was so loud, when it hit the water, it was this huge wave. That's what you're going to say. You're not going to say...
I didn't even hear that on my end.
Yeah, unfortunately, my OBS is capturing my desktop. That's how I get you into this video. And It captured that freaking email. It said, your phone is done updating. Appreciate it. You just screwed me all up. All right, start back in. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I get so wrapped up into this conversation that I kind of get lost. All right. Well, that was a wonderful experience I had. I mean, I'm sure everyone else here had a great experience too. David, I mean, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for joining me on this. This is, like I said, it's my first interview. It's the first interview I've done in my entire life, period. So hopefully this goes pretty well. And I can't even begin to thank you for all you have done and all you have said. Is there any closing statements you would like to add?
I'll say this. I think a lot of being a voice, an interviewer, is having a good voice. And I think you definitely have a very pleasant voice, so I'd listen.
Oh, really? Thank you. That what's wild about that is I was complaining to my mother literally before I started this video about how I wish I had a different voice, that I hate my voice so much, but you just made my day, good man. You really did.
I mean it. Like, yeah, if you think about it, like, I think a big part of being like a talker and stuff is having like a common kind of good sounding voice, and you definitely have that. You know, it's fun
Well,
to talk to you.
well, this is going in the video. I'll tell you that. Well, all right, guys. Well, thank you again for coming to this show, and that's pretty much all for today's show. Uh, I hope y'all join us for the next one, and the next one I'll have a better mic, and maybe this wonderful, buttery smooth voice will sound even better on a better mic. Anyways, like I always say, y'all have a good one.